drinking and driving and hurting people and property to the fullest degree, rather than punishing everybody else for pre-crimes and thought crimes. Now, I'm going to wrap it up like this. I'm going to quote Mayor Amschel Bauer Rothschild, one of the neo-pharaohs, bloodline neo-pharaohs that we have now, hiding in the shadows. The richest person in the world is Bill Gates. Yeah, right. These people are so rich they don't even count it in terms of money. Mayor Amschel Bauer Rothschild, the patriarch of the Rothschild banking dynasty, was asked in some kind of an interview 100, 150 years ago, what scares you? You've got all the money, you've got all the power. I mean, what are you afraid of? Which I thought was an interesting question, and he seemed to relish in it. And he said, well, I'm not afraid of gambling, I'm not afraid of vices. You know, this is how his brain was thinking. But when it came down to it, what he was afraid of most was innovations, innovators, ideas. You've heard the term, ideas are bulletproof. They want to stop you from having them, and if you have them, they want to own them. They must control ideas, because if not, the next Nikola Tesla can come along and invent a whole new form of free energy for everybody, and they're all out of business. So I want to make a few suggestions. A lot of things you can do. First of all, I mentioned the FCC, the radio police. Those are public airwaves. They are not to be used to put together Tweedledee and Tweedledummer candidates so that we have no choice and we never get freedom. They're not to be used to indoctrinate people, to control people's opinions, or to call you far left, far out, or far right because you believe in following the truth and speaking the truth. So I suggest that we get busy, and when you go home, you look into putting up radio towers. There's a thing called low-power micro radio stations, which are springing up all over the country. They can't get them all, and they're not. They are operating with almost impunity from coast to coast, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, sometimes several in a city. And believe it or not, these little micro-transmitters, which in a time of war do belong to the people, since we're in perpetual war all the time, there goes that loophole, can be put up in your neighborhoods, can be put up in your cities, and they cost maybe $1,000, very easy to do it. And then your whole community can have another kind of radio to listen to that doesn't hold back the truth, that doesn't pull its punches, and that tells the people what's really going on. So the communication is imperative, and one thing is, if the cyber attack comes or the next big attack comes, and they control the radio stations, I've been in radio all my life almost now at this point. You have to understand there's FEMA boxes in the radio stations, and when there's an emergency, they switch over to their program. So this covert way to get the message out is vitally important. You must also be working on and maybe gathering equipment to put up your own internet hubs, because there's a good chance that they might take the internet down. It hasn't worked out too well for them. So we have to be prepared to hook your neighborhood up with my neighborhood, your city with your city, and the next thing you know, we've got a backbone for the people's internet. They can't take it away from us. See, that's the good news. As hard as they try, they can't take our freedom away from us, because our freedom lives in here. Our freedom lives in here. Our freedom lives with all of you, unless we let them. They're like the vampire that if you don't invite them in, they can't bite you and suck your blood, which, by the way, they seem to like doing. So we want to set up these cells, these hubs as I call them, human underground against BS. Alternate internets, micro AM and FM, publish newsletters, talk to your neighbors. Petition the mainstream media, sure, but remember, you are the media, and they need you, or they end up like all the newspapers and mainstream media today, falling through the floorboards and almost worthless. You are the media. confront. You look at the Tea Parties, whether you agree with what they say or not, or whether you think it's righteous or not, whether you think it's grassroots or not, it doesn't matter. That has an effect. Consensus has an effect on politicians that try to figure out what you're thinking and then try to at least pretend to give you what it is that you want. Well, one thing they've learned here the last year is that once you start affecting people's pocketbooks and taking their homes and these kinds of things, the people start waking up pretty fast and getting very upset. And as much as they want to do things, they can't, because they have to have consensus to do it. I'm not talking about democracy, 51% consensus, but the people have to be sold on it. If the people can't be sold on it, they can't do it, technically. Now, if we look at the Cousin Barry administration, they're going to do it anyway, with or without you, whether you like it or not, and that's going to backfire on them. It already is. People will see them for who they are. So I want you to ask yourself, what does freedom look like to you? Spend a lot of time thinking about what it doesn't look like. Spend a lot of time, all of us, complaining about the loss of liberties, the problems we face, the problems facing the world. What does freedom look like? If we're getting rid of the Fed, what's going to take its place? What are you doing to work on that? Just to give an example. Getting media back into the control of the people. What are you going to do about that? What does it look like? How do you do it? Pick something and run with it. I could go on and on this. We're not offering solutions, as in problem reaction solution. We're offering answers. And we're not offering fake hope. We're offering real hope and real change, and maybe sometimes a change back to that thing called the Constitution of the United States of America. You hear a lot about the truthers, the birthers, now the tenthers. I'm a very proud ninether, and I can't wait till they smear me for that one. You cannot read the Constitution. It shall not be construed. That means it cannot be reinterpreted. It is what it is. What it says in there stands. Everything else is power to the people. Right now. So I'm a happy ninether. You can't take my rights away for any reason, to give to somebody else, to do for somebody else, to do for yourself. Those are my rights. And I hope that my son, who's 6 years old now, isn't speaking in an avenue such as this 40 years from now, trying to tell people what the Constitution was, what sovereignty was, what freedom was. I hope instead that they'll look back at what you have done, and what the people of this generation, in this era, one of the most important generations in my personal opinion, in the era of the technotronic era, as Zbigniew Brzezinski calls it, to probably ever exist, the bridge between rolling the stone in the factories to mass cyber everything, is an incredible bridge that will probably never, ever be mounted again. It's up to us. So I want our children to look back and say, you were heroes. My parents, my grandparents were heroes. They saved the republic. Thank you very much, folks. Check out all the great speakers and the great musicians coming up here. And remember, your dreams are waiting for you to come true. Be bold, and mighty forces will come to your aid. Thank you.
Mr. Jack Blood. All right, so.